Hey, Pastor, thanks for joining me today, brother.
Good to be with you finally, man. We've been talking about this for a hot minute, but what better time that we're all pretty much quarantined, right? So, good
Exactly.
time to do it.
Now, where are you coming to us from?
I am in Columbia, South Carolina, and we have in the city of Columbia, we have a stay-at-home or shelter-in-place. We can go out, do grocery shopping, the essential things that we need, exercise. But other than that, they want us to kind of stay in our own homes. But it's been a little bit different, with churches and everything pretty much shut down. But it's been also a great opportunity to kind of be still and just kind of gather thoughts and forecast future ministry stuff. And so, it's not all that bad.
Now, I know you're a pastor, do you have a church now, or what does that look like for you?
I have a ministry, John for Christ, and what that focus on is more doing. It's a faith based. I had to raise all my support, somewhat like a chaplain. I worked with a football team here in town, small college called Allen University. I was a chaplain last year. I just spoke with Coach Will Muschamp before all this stuff got started. I will be doing, Lord willing, please, Father, help us have football. I'll be doing some work over there, working with the young men at the University of South Carolina and working with a chaplain there. So a lot of great things going on with that. And then I focus on men's ministry through my church, Shandon Baptist Church in Columbia, and other pastors in town. We're setting up. We had several men's conferences set up. One was supposed to be in April and one in August, but now that again all this stuff, everything's kind of halted or been interrupted. So, but we focus on men, challenging men to uh, really, be spiritual leaders of their home, starting in their marriage, or their own revival in their relationship with the Lord, to the wives, I should say, and then down to the children, being the godly father that He's called us to be. And then, my focus is really just that recurring generational blessing, because we as dads and as fathers, if we get that lined up correctly, then we'll see these things just continue to, and this generations and the generation to generation. But it starts with us as fathers and as husbands, and so that's really what Giants for Christ is. The whole thing, football giants were great, but if we can build spiritual, godly giants, then our world's going to be a better place.
Amen, brother. Tell me a little bit about yourself, man. How'd you grow up?
I grew up in Pageland, South Carolina, a little small town. We are proudly known for our watermelons. In fact, we like to call Pageland the watermelon capital of the world. We have a watermelon festival every year. A little small 2A school. I had 10 brothers and sisters. I have 10 brothers and sisters. And we grew up not with much, but a lot of faith, which is more than anything that we need. Um, and it was a great, great raising. I'm a country boy, and that had to go to church, had to be involved in the church. We family had a group we called the Miller Family Singers. We traveled churches to churches to sing on Sundays as well. But grew up pretty poor, and God gave me the ability to play sports. I've always had that. And my brothers and my cousins were older than I was, and we used to play tackle the man with the football on the field. And here I am, little Corey, running around with these basically grown men getting knocked around, banged around. So I credit that for helping me get to where I am today, or get through the National Football League, because I grew up playing football with a bunch of grown men. So we didn't have much, and we had to create our fun. We had to, trust God. My dad worked so hard. My mother was a great wife, a great mother. Um, unfortunately, I lost my mother and my father last year, July 4th. I lost my mom somewhat unexpectedly. She was 88 years old. And then I lost my father that September, a few months afterwards. So, been a tough road for us as a family, but God was faithful, and they were great, great parents. To have them 50 years was a great blessing. So, but I came from a little town, man. Like I said, just really based on faith and family and football, because Fridays all we had was football at Central Pavement High School, and a lot of good folk there, and man, I tell you, it's just been an awesome place to live. Nothing really there but family. So this kind of living right now doesn't bother me, because it's how I grew up. We had no money, couldn't go nowhere. We didn't have cars, and we had to create, man. So I grew up there, got a scholarship to University of South Carolina in 1987. I chose to go to school there. My high school football coach, Al Usher, played there. He played linebacker as well for the Gamecocks, and they kind of uh, made me into a Gamecock fan early on. And so I ended up going to school there. But another reason I went to school there because my parents could come to games. It was about an hour and 10-minute drive. And as I told you, our financial situation, I didn't want to go to school far off. I could have. I got recruited by everybody. It was a prep All-American out of that little town of Pageland. But ended up going to school there. And I ended up sitting out my freshman year because academically I didn't qualify. Um, and so I had to sit out my freshman year and prove that I could do the work academically. Well, I ended up being a scholar athlete, and of course football took care of itself. And then of course I made all conference a couple of years in a row, defense player of the year, and for my team, and you know, ended up getting drafted by the Giants in the 6th round after they won the Super Bowl, and the rest is history.
Oh, that's cool, man. And I want to jump into the Giant stuff here at some point, but let me ask you, like, among your siblings, did any of those, the boys, did any of them go on to play football, or how'd that look for you?
My older brother was a really good basketball player. He played a little bit of football, but he wasn't. He didn't like that contact. So I remember Dad taking him to a game on a Friday. And they was playing in school, and we were dropping him off, and he saw how big those guys were getting off the bus, and I'll never forget it. That was the end of his football career. He stuck to basketball, but he was an excellent basketball player, and I think he got some small school offers, but chose to go to the military. So he went and served our country. My younger brother, uh, maybe more athletically gifted than any of us. He ended up going to school here in Columbia for a couple of years, Benedict, but again, grade issues. He could have gone anywhere he wanted to go, receiver, DB type, and play basketball. He could do anything, but he only played 2 years. So my sister was a basketball and volleyball player. She's about 6 feet tall. Um, but other than that, I kind of carried that torch, man, for the sports side of the family. But we all still living all together, and I love them all, man. We got a great family.
Now, how big of an influence was he on your life as a man, husband, and father?
Wow. Um, excuse me. He was awesome. Um, he was my hero, all of our heroes, and he worked hard, man. He supplied every need that we ever had. We didn't have much, but he was that dad that he would get the shirt off his back, and not just for us, but he would do it for the community. I've seen him do it for people at a church. He'll give his last. Um, he taught us about Jesus, and that was the most important thing that we could ever have, and that was the most important thing he could ever leave us with. And he was just a strong man, and loved my mom, and he loved people at his church. I mean, he lived this life, man, to the final breath. And even then, he was still worshiping the Lord. And being a preacher now, um, I promised my dad, something I'll never forget. He used to sing this song, running for his life, and he loved to sing that song. And when he died, it became real what he was saying. He ran his life so hard for Jesus. And, Paul said he fought the good fight, he finished the race. And so I promised him that I'll run for my life. And that's why I do what I do. And I think about my dad. I talk about him every time I preach or speak, because he was a wonderful father. And I wish many people could have that kind of dad that just supported us, loved us. He was one of those guys, never said much. He was a guy of action. He believed in that scripture, just don't be a hearer, but be a doer of the word. And he never really told us much that he loved us, but he showed us how much he loved us. And but in the end, I heard him tell my mother, for the first time, he loved her at the end of his life until he loved us as well. So when I think of him, man, I think, that's what dads is about. This is what it's all about. It's not about what the type of job you have or how much money you have. It's about loving the Lord, showing that example for your kids, loving your wife like Christ loved the church, showing that example what godly covenant marriage looks like, and loving people and doing for people. He checked every single box. And if I had my 10 brothers and sisters here, they would echo the exact same thing. And what an awesome man. And I got a chance, the great privilege, to preach his funeral. And he waited on me to get to the house to hold his hand. And man, I felt hopeless and helpless for a little bit to see such a strong man that's been my leader for about 50 years to go home to be with the Lord. But I'm glad I was there. And about 10, 15 minutes after I got there, he transitioned. So I'm running for my life. That's my thing. I'm running to tell other men, to tell other fathers. It's just bigger. Life is bigger than the things you can give them, earthly things that's going to pass away. But this inheritance of knowing Jesus as Lord and Savior and passing that generational blessing down to your children is the most important thing. And that's what my father did.
Amen, brother. Man, I tell you what, you're a blessed dude. There's so many out there, including myself, that didn't have that role model. And I'll be honest with you too. When we were making the movie, The Father Effect, we could find plenty of stories that were the rough ones, the tough ones. But it was tough to find the guys that had a great story, that had a father who was the example, the Christ-like example of what all of us are called to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, dude, that's such a blessing. And I can tell in your voice and your face, man, it's emotional for you. And I know it's pretty
Yeah.
fresh too. What's been the biggest struggle that you as a father have had, and how did you overcome it?
You know, man, I got caught up into the luxury, the fame, the football, the money. I got caught up into that. And when I had my kids, I I didn't exemplify that early on. You know, football, I was selfish. To my ex-wife, I was selfish to my children. I cheated more ways than physically. I cheated them in time. I cheated them in leadership. And man, that's one of the things that hurts me more than anything today. I remember when I was getting divorced, walking in the room with my two boys, having to tell them that daddy had to leave. Um, and man, that ripped me to the core. And that was a part of the change in my life. And I missed a lot of time with them. I always try to be a father and be there and teach, and football. I always was there. I never was absent that way, but I was absent in the teaching and leading like my dad did for me. And so, as my boys got older, I kind of reconciled that relationship when Christian started getting recruited, go to Alabama or other schools at the time, and you know, I knew it was important for me to be a godly example. And I used my worst situation in order to to really open their eyes. I wanted them to see the worst, and talk about the worst in me. I talked about the horrible person that I was, cheating on the mother, getting them heavy alcohol and drinking and being absent. I've had those conversations. They've been with me and they heard me preach and share testimonies. And I want them to know that, a lot of people come up to me about sports and football, but I want them to know I was an imperfect person. I failed, but you can overcome. So my message now to my kids is about overcoming. Even though I fell short of the glory of God many times, but the God reconciled my life, redeemed my life, and brought me to where I am today. But man, the mistakes I made, the regret I made, that getting caught up into the worldly things and having, I gave them the nice house and they had nice cars and clothes and they, you know, but man, I was so absent from being a father and a dad. And that's the unfortunate part that we see that today. And I tell men today, this is, yeah, you got a great job. You're in corporate America or you playing NFL football, but you may not even be physically cheating on your wife, but you're cheating them with time. You're putting things before your wife. You're putting things before your children. You go on, you're not having an impact. It doesn't matter what kind of house they live in or they can go shop. What's going to last is you being there. And so I try to use my failure to help other men understand what fatherhood and being a husband is all about.
Doesn't it bring back into focus too and the appreciation just of God's amazing grace?
Yes. Thank God for it, man. Undeserved, right? Undeserved.
Absolutely. You look back, I've often looked back in my life and went, man, I am just thankful that I'm still alive and the humility that comes along with it. I mean, now obviously you have a much greater appreciation and you become very humbled when God's taking you
Whew.
through those valleys and you realize now, man, I can't make it without him. Because if I tried on my own, I'm gonna screw this thing up bigger than Dallas, right?
Yeah, and that's man, that's the message today is, God, I need you. Um, I've tried it on my own for so long, and you may have glimpses of success, but you always go back to the vomit. You always return back to the vomit because you're a human, you're flesh, you're going to fall short of the glory of God. We are like sheep. We all go astray. Sheep is the dumbest animal. That's the word says we like sheep. We're dumb. We don't get it until we give it to the Father. And it's so crucial. It's so crucial that we make Jesus Christ Lord. And he has to be our source and he has to be our everything. And we have to live our lives based on him. If we want to experience true victory and true freedom and true peace, it's only in Jesus. And that's what I share to people. I've had everything. I had the city on the hill with houses and cars and fame and TV. And I had all that stuff. And it profited me nothing. What profited for the man that gained this whole world but yet lose his soul? And this is what the message is today. Even today, as we stand with all this stuff going on, people need to understand what profit for a man to gain this whole world and lose your soul. God can cause things to stop just like it is right now. He can take things away from him. He is on the throne and he is Lord, brother. And I'm so thankful that God, especially the last 16 months, man, has just given me a zeal and a new passion for him. And I just telling my wife just before I came on, I love Jesus. I love the Lord. And nothing else matter. I mean, and it really does. And when you get older, you start to realize even more. Life is short, life is fragile. And what's gonna last is the word of the Lord. Everything else will pass away.
So getting caught up in the fame and the fortune and all of that, is there a story of when God brought you back to him?
Well, I've been through, man, my life has been just like this for a long time. And, I remarried and I got an awesome, awesome wife. And when Christian went to college, and of course, I madly supported him. I was doing TV. I was basically, heading the sports department here at a local Fox station. And it was a lot of work uh, and then having to try to get the Christians games. I didn't want to miss those. It's just one of those obligations, man. This is a blessing. I'm a Gamecock, but yeah, I still support my son. I support Alabama. And I found myself cheating, but not physically. I found myself starting to cheat my wife. And, and one day it happened where she was just like sick of it. She wasn't, I wasn't leading spiritually. I was doing some good things with my kids and some other, but speaking and preaching here and there, but I was neglecting my wife. I was cheating my wife emotionally, spiritually, physically. I mean, you name it. And one day she said, I had enough. And here I am. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in church. I love the Lord. I'm not cheating physically. I'm home. But I was home, but wasn't home. She was like a roommate. She used to say that all the time. And it really, God used that to open my eyes. And I went to counseling, therapy, and he asked me a bunch of questions one day. He said, I want you to answer these questions and about what's important to me. And when he started asking me, I kept saying, Corey, Corey, God, Missy, Corey, Corey, Corey. Here I was being selfish again. And what he said to me that changed my life, he said, I know you're a Christian, you're a preacher. I know Jesus Christ is your Savior. He said, but is Jesus Christ your Lord? And a light bulb went off. I'm having therapy over the phone in my car, and it was like, boom, Jesus not my Lord. Why? Because my life did not represent that. My actions, how I love my wife, how I responded to my children, was I sharing the God, all the different things was pointed to Jesus Christ was not my Lord. 15, 16 months ago. And I repented of my sin that day. And man, life has never been the same. I
Dude,
can proudly say today, Jesus is my Lord, brother.
I love it, man. And you know what, bro? I love just your willingness to share that and the real struggle, because I'll tell you, whether you're in corporate America or doesn't matter what you do for a living, but I know especially with pastors even, and I did this early on in my ministry, the phone would ring and it would be somebody like an addict or something, and he would say, I'm not fixing to use, can you come talk me off the ledge? And I'd just rush out the door. It was all about the ministry, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
began putting the ministry in front of my family. And
Yeah.
I realized pretty quick, whoa, hold on a second. That's not the way this thing works. It's not God, ministry, family, because ministry
Yep.
is work, right? So it's
Yeah.
just like everybody else. It's God, family, and then whatever else comes next. And that's a hard
Yeah.
thing, I think, for many men, even guys that are not pastors or in ministry, but again, whatever they do for a living, that gets out of whack so many times. And it has for me more than once. So I get it.
Yeah. And the thing that I had to learn, me and my wife just having this conversation, that she is my ministry. Our wives are our ministry. Our family is our ministry. Matter of fact, in Timothy, the scripture talks about that, right? And they talk about the charge to deacons. And that how can how can you minister to other folk, basically? And I'm paraphrasing this. When your house is not right, when you can't even take care of your house, how can you take care of God's house, basically? So that's the ticket. So we as men have to really focus on that, and that's what I'm doing today, and I'm sharing again my failure, my shortcomings. I like to say I'm naked before God, brother. Here's my life. I have nothing to hide. I want people to see the worst part of my life and see what God has done, because God takes the worst of the worst. Talk to me, Saul, now Paul, right? He takes the worst of the worst, and he'll take your mess and give you a great message. And I want to let men know, whether you've been a mediocre father, great father, or awful father, there is redemption. It's not too late. You know, God is sitting there saying, come on, I want to turn your life around. I'll teach you how to be the great father. And, like I said, I want people to know I went through a couple of those roller coaster years, but I now see what Amazing Grace is all about. And it's not too late, man. I don't care what you've gone through, what's happening with you and your children, your sons or your daughters. You may not be talking, man, repent, and God will open up that dialogue again. He's able to do more than we actually think or imagine.
Amen, dude. I in the midst of one of my valley moments, if you will, I remember, because I'd gotten lost in the ministry and the other stuff, and I remember it just came to me. It was like, the greatest ministry you will ever have is the one in your home. And you said
Yep.
it, right? If we get that piece right as a number one thing, second to God, if you will. God
Yeah.
first, our home and our family second, but realizing that's where our greatest ministry is. Man,
Hmm.
that's where the generational stuff pays off and is impacted for so many generations in such a positive way, right?
No doubt about it. Listen, we have an enemy. We have a real enemy, and he's a thief. He comes to steal, kill, and to destroy. And I am certain that the attack is on the man. It's on the father. The attack, if he can destroy the father, he destroys the seed. And then that generational blessing turns to generational cursing. So that's how important it is for us as dads and fathers and husbands. We got to get it right. We have to get it right. You know, God's when Adam and Eve messed up in the garden, he didn't call Eve first. He said, Adam, where are you? You know what I mean? And it was a woman. But see, God looks at us as the man, the spiritual head, to take that authority and lead spiritually. But the enemy is going to come to kill, steal, and to destroy. He wants to destroy your family, your children, your marriage. He wants to destroy it because why? I'm convinced God, Jesus Christ, says he's married to us. We're his bride. Think about this. He is the bridegroom. So Christianity, the picture is marriage. Why would the enemy want to destroy us? Why does he care? Because if he destroys marriage, it destroys the picture of Jesus Christ and our relationship. We're in covenant relationship with Jesus. And I love what he says, he died for us. I love you so much. I die for you, even in your mess, even in your faults. It doesn't matter. I change it not. And we got a great example as men. And Jesus says, love your wives as Christ loved the church. How much is that? I died for you. That's a big task. That's a tall order. But God, with the help of Jesus, with the help of other brothers, we working together, iron sharpening iron. I like to call it spiritual spotters. We got to have other men. We got to have other fathers that we lean on. That's why I love what you're doing, that we get these stories out here. That's spotting. I can say this real quick. I was in the gym and a guy said, hey, can you spot me? And I said, yeah, man. And I walked over there and as I stood behind him, and I said, you need a lift off? And he's like, no, I got it. Just kind of watch me. And you stand back there and you watch him as he presses that weight, Why does he need me back there? He feels more comfortable when he has somebody standing behind him. He's confident that if I fall short, somebody can get that weight off my chest. And sometimes that spot, I like to call it the two-finger spot. You just have to, they get like this sometimes. They get a little sideways, right? And we just have to just balance them out and let them keep going. Sometimes we have to pick the weight off of that person. And the Lord was speaking to me, and he said, that's how it is in spotting each other. Sometimes things are going pretty good. You're repping pretty good, but then it gets heavy and you get a little sideways. You have issues in your life. You and your wife arguing, or you got financial issues, or you might have a emotional fit, whatever it is. You might have to help balance that brother out so he can get that weight off. Sometimes that brother just falls on his face. He's got a pornography issue. He's got an adultery issue. He just totally walked away from God. You got to go lift that thing off of him. That's what we got to do as men, as fathers. We got to spot one another spiritually, because the reality is no matter how awesome we think we are, we're going to need some help. We're going to need some training, and we're going to need some spotters.
Amen, brother. Dude, I love that analogy. I've never heard that before, and I love the analogy. What's the best thing about being a dad?
Oh man, man, I love my boys, man. It's awesome just to see, them grow up and become their own kind of person. And I just marvel in their successes. And my son CJ, my oldest son Corey Jr., was a great athlete and ended up going. Could have played football. I'm convinced he could have been in the NFL in football. He wanted to play basketball. That's what he loved. And I'll tell you this, man, I didn't do good parenting with him. I was a great father because he was my oldest son. He was the one that's supposed to be at Alabama or playing on Sunday. He was the one, and I pushed and I pushed, and man, it did not. I feel guilty a little bit because I felt like I turned him away from football because I pressed too hard. And ended up wanting to play basketball, and he went through a whole bunch of other issues. But man, he's turned out to be just an awesome young man. Matter of fact, his birthday coming up April 2nd, and he's DJing. He played a couple years at junior college, and he's happy with his life. And I have to be content with that. But I figured out with my other son, I didn't press too much, and he just figured it out with Christian. And he's tall, slender guy, and he just kept working and working. And ESPN had him the #1 high school outside linebacker in the country coming out. And every school in America wanted him, and he's done it, man. He's worked hard, and he's learned from my mistakes financially. He's doing great things, and I think from when you see your kids learning from some of the things that you've taught them, and even the mistakes, that you learn to appreciate it. But I love both my kids, and the Lord blessed me with them. I still think both of them got some preach in them. They may not see it right now, because I wanted to make sure I instill that godliness in them, and they know who Jesus Christ is. And I'm just going to be even more proud that we keep this generation from my father, to me. And then I want to pass the same thing down to my boys, that they love Jesus and really be good husbands and fathers. And so that's what makes me proud.
Now, your son, Christian, he got drafted, right? NFL?
Yeah, 4th round, went to the Panthers, and he's in his 2nd year now. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
He's at Alabama, and probably would have went a little higher. He kind of almost grade 2 hamstring tear against Oklahoma last year in the Orange Bowl. Was playing great. Got close to playing in the national championship game, but they didn't play him, and so. But he's there. He had a good first year. Was playing well. He just had minor setbacks. A little twisted ankle for a while, but he played pretty good for the most part. And looking forward, hopefully, prayerfully, that we'll have football season, what he's going to be able to do now.
So, dude, I got to ask you before we wrap this thing up, give me your favorite Lawrence Taylor story with the Giants.
Well, I mean, this guy, there's so many stories. He was, first of all, he was a grown man. Even in his later years, I played 3 years on the opposite side of him. And I used to have to wake him up in his last year. He'd be falling asleep on the sidelines. Unbelievable. And I'd be like, hey, man, we got to go back in the game. But he was just crazy, man. He is the only dude that they would hold the airplane up for, right? We found out of Newark Airport, and Lawrence Taylor nowhere to be found. That plane would not leave until they got him on there, right? And so he comes running, onto the plane. I'm sweating and tired, and they were like, dude, like, what'd you do? He's like, man, I was running late. I forgot what time we were leaving. And we're like, what do you do with your car? He goes, I just threw the keys to the guy, the car guy, and said, you know who I am. Keep my car till Monday. Here's a guy got a $50,000 Lexus. He said, yeah, I just threw the keys to the parking attendant. Said, you know who I am. Hold on to my car till we get back.
Now, he was, what side linebacker were you?
I play strong side. So I play what they call the Sam linebacker position.
He was
strong outside. He was a weak side. So we were 3-4 at the time, and then we ended up getting Rod Rust from New England, and they came in with I think it was Dan Reeves. No, it was another coach, and he changed the whole defense around. And another thing, LT would always sleep in the meetings. Like he'd get on front floor, and he'd just fall asleep. And it was funny because Rob was going through a coverage, like 43 box poach. I'll never forget this. We're going to run 43 box poach. We're going to blitz, double A gap, blitz with the middle linebackers. Corey Young, Lawrence going to be, buzz and drop into the flats. And Lawrence Taylor, again, sleeping on the floor, got up, and he had some choice words. I can't say these words. And he was like, what? He was like, and blah, 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 blah. Do you know who I am? At the time, he's like, I'm the NFL all-time leading sack. You think I'm going to cover somebody? You crazy. And he went back to sleep. And needless to say, Lawrence Taylor didn't drop back in the cover. He rushed the quarterback.
That's funny. Who was your middle linebacker in that scheme?
Pepper Johnson. We had Gary Reasons. Then we had Pepper Johnson, Steve DiAssi. And then when those guys left, we ended up getting Carlton Bailey. and Michael Brooks from Denver, two really good inside linebackers. So 93 was number one defense in the league. But we got walloped out in San Francisco by the 49ers that year. Steve Young, man, they put 44 points on us. And that was Jerry Rice, Steve Young, John Taylor, Ricky Waters. I mean, they were stacked. Brent Price at tight end. And, man, they put a whooping on us. That was Lawrence Taylor's last game.
Wow. Last question, man. If you have a new dad sitting in front of you right now, and he said, hey, give me a piece of advice that's going to be the game changer for me, what would you tell him?
I would tell him, first and foremost, about Jesus and about making Jesus Christ the Lord. That's going to be your greatest example of a father. And I would say, love your wife like Christ loved the church, because, your son is going to look at you, how you treat your wife, how you love your wife. It's going to be a big difference. So I would say, make sure you do that. And those are two most critical things I can share. Have that relationship with your Lord and Savior, and then you be that leader to your wife and your son and your daughter. I'm telling you, y'all all will point to Jesus Christ. Will point to the cross. If we all do that as husbands and fathers, man, we're gonna have some great blessings down the road. No doubt about it.
Tell the guys out there how they can connect with you.
Well, please go to my website, Giants, just like the New York Giants, the number 4 Christ.com, and that's my website. And you can just click on different links there, tell you all about my ministry. Or if you want, I got a page, Facebook page, Giants for Christ is that as well. I put a lot of sermons that I'm preaching and speaking to men. I'm preaching to some addicts every week, overcoming addicts, I must say, called U-Turn. At the church here in town, that's pretty awesome, man, that hooked on meth and all types of drugs. So go to my Facebook page, you can see some of that. And of course, you want to hit me up on Twitter at Pastor Payne. You can go to my Pastor Payne Instagram, and then Pastor Payne at Gmail on Facebook. So I'm all over the place. You hit Pastor Payne, you can find me. This big old gray face right here.
Man, I appreciate you taking this time, and I know it's going to be a blessing to some guys out there for sure.
Yeah, I pray, man, and I thank you for your platform and what you're doing, and really let's spot one another, man, and continue to pour into these men's lives, because I know, especially now, man, God is speaking. I believe here in these I believe last days, that we got to reconcile and be the men that God has called us to be the husbands, be the fathers that He's called us to be. And what a platform! Thank you for having me,
dude. Appreciate you, man. We'll catch up soon.
Yes, sir. God bless you, brother.
You too, brother. See you. Bye.
Take care.